Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video today geared at adults who are just coming back into the hobby. Maybe they, recently came back into the hobby the last couple months over this coronavirus period because they found their cards. They maybe moved back home or they visited their parents' house and they found their childhood cards. Uh, and started getting back into collecting, or they've done that sort of in the past year or two. This video is going to be geared at helping you guys become better collectors. Talk a little bit about what I suggest for people just jumping into the hobby, and then sort of as you gain experience, hoping to give you some tips and tricks that will really allow you to make the best out of your money, get the most out of your money. So I hope that you guys enjoy the video and get some useful information from it. So the first thing that I would suggest any brand new person do actually is buy a modern booster box or some sort of modern product and open a few packs, because this will re-engage your feelings of nostalgia, very likely, and it'll give you a sense of what your goals might be as a collector and what you enjoy and what you want to do. So it's an affordable way to both get information about what does the Pokemon hobby look like today, what do the cards look like today, get information on the pull rates, on what are the cards that people are going after, what are the most popular Pokemon, all those sorts of things you can get by opening a modern box and then checking the prices of those cards that you find in the box, getting a sense of what those cards go for ungraded, just sold raw on eBay, and then get a sense of what they go for when they're graded, and starting to learn a little bit about what grading is and the importance of grading within this hobby. So that's the first thing I'd suggest you do, because you can do it. You can gain all that information for about $90. You can just spend $90, buy that booster box, have a ton of fun opening 36 packs. It's a great way to get back into it. The second thing that I would suggest you do, if you're an adult and you collected the Wizards of the Coast, for example, or if you're a young adult or a teenager, and you're started with the sort of Nintendo original EX era, into any fourth and then fifth generations. If you started anywhere there, start with what the most, what you have most of a sense of what these sets are about, what were the popular Pokemon in those sets. Start collecting your very favorite set, and I would start doing it in in ungraded quality, unless you have a lot of money and can afford to maybe buy cards at prices that are not going to hold, that might go down. I'd say that right now the market is fluctuating quite a bit. So I wouldn't be buying anything right now if you're sort of a beginner or fairly new, with the idea that this price is definitely going to hold, or I need it to hold in order to have a good time. So, I think that if you're buying any probably Wizards of the Coast, hollows in great condition, or graded, in high grades, these cards are very investable, and we'll go into that in this video. And there's a good chance if you hold those cards for a very long time, they might go up. But there are better buys, right now. There are some cards that are better buys than other cards. And to gain all that expertise and knowledge is very difficult when you're just jumping into the hobby. So start with what you know and start on the lower end, unless you have the money to jump in and the money to frankly lose and still have a good time, which is totally understandable. At the end of the day, if you want a card and you don't mind if it goes half in price, goes down half in price, go for it, absolutely. But for those who really are on tight budget and have sort of potentially large collecting goals, I would start really slow and get a better sense of what's going on in the market right now, as prices have really moved up a lot in a very short amount of time, as I've talked about in a number of my other videos. Um, so the next reason why I would start with those two things is those two things will give you a sense of now what is my makeup as a collector and what are my goals going to be as a collector. So for me, I realized that I enjoyed having graded cards, and I just was immediately attracted to that. I liked the cases. I liked the way it looked. And I also enjoyed the chase and the condition qualifier because for me, part of the fun, and I'll preface this by saying that, I also love ungraded cards and I have binders of ungraded cards. And when I see an ungraded card, I get a huge jolt of nostalgia. So I definitely have those feelings too. But I realized that I also enjoyed having things that were very valuable, very rare, and very scarce. And I got that excitement sort of rush feeling when I would, get a PSA 10 first edition holo, card that only had 20 copies in the world or 25 copies in the world. That was a really cool, exciting feeling that I was realizing that I enjoyed and wanted to chase and build some of my goals around achieving and being able to find and buy some of those really high end cards. I also was attracted to those cards because I felt like they had the most potential to really go up a lot in the future. And as someone who I've always really enjoyed investing and enjoyed the idea of, living like fairly frugally and putting, most of my money in assets and different things that I think are going to really go up in value. I've put most of my money in my life, in stocks, and I took a percentage of that basically and started putting it into something like Pokemon because one, it's so much fun. I really enjoy it. And two, I viewed it as very investable and collectible. And the reason I tell you these sorts of things is this is stuff you're going to figure out by opening modern product and by buying ungraded cards and some graded cards. You will figure out what type of collector am I? Am I going to be most happy by not going after the top of the mountain because then I just have that buyer's remorse and it doesn't make me feel good to spend that much money on something. It makes me very anxious to spend that much money on something, and I can get more enjoyment or just as much enjoyment for a much cheaper, inexpensive option. Or am I that type of person who just loves to collect the top of the mountain, and I want that? And there are people, of both kind in this hobby, and I think that figuring out who you are and then learning to then budget in order to meet some of those collecting goals will help you have a really good experience and a good time in this hobby. So, I mean, some of the things to think about as you're doing that, do I love all Pokemon? Do I love basically all Pokemon cards like me? I have some favorite Pokemon, but I generally enjoy like all the Pokemon. I just like Pokemon cards a lot. And for me, like I like cool art more than I'm collecting a specific Pokemon card. But there are other people who really like the idea of collecting like one of every Pikachu, one of every Charizard, taking one of the main Pokemon that they really like and collecting every single, one of every one of that card across all the sets that it's in. So figuring out, does that sound more appealing? Do you want to collect sets? Whole sets of Pokemon cards? Do you want to collect graded cards? Do you want to collect ungraded cards? Do you want to collect sealed product and just be a sealed product? So by starting small and diversifying in the beginning, buying a little bit of each of these things and trying these different things, you can figure out what makes you the happiest and what you enjoy the most, and then really use your money to go after those sorts of things. Okay. So once you have done that, you really want to make some sort of, I would suggest some sort of budgeting financial plan on how you're going to achieve those goals. So you need to figure out how much money can you afford to spend a week, spend a month. If you have savings, like I did, how much, of my stock am I going to sell, and then move into the Pokemon market? How much money do I feel comfortable giving myself, to play with, that I feel like I can grow a collection that I enjoy, meet my goals with this amount of money, that I'm not going to have to spend more than that, or more than I can afford, or more than it's going to put me at some sort of financial risk because, you know, as I said in my first video, I've been one of the most I've been a very bullish person in the Pokemon market, and I believed, 2-3 years ago when I got in, these cards were going to go up a lot in the future. And I still think that they have plenty of room to grow and go up. A lot less than they did, honestly, but still quite a bit, particularly for certain cards, because I compare them to comic books and other sorts of things, and I look at the numbers, of these cards that exist, the price versus comic books, the prices those comic books were able to hit, when they were able to hit those prices, things like that, and understanding how many people are collecting comics versus how many people are into Pokemon. You can do those by looking at like numbers of Pokemon cards sold versus comic books sold, and there's all this sorts of data, and we're going to get into, in my next point, doing that research and being that engaged is what's ultimately going to make you be a good collector here. But the point in me giving you all that information is that even though that is all true, Pokemon is very risky. It's very risky to put your money in collectibles for a few reasons. If you really need that money, or you're going to need that money soon. So you should have money in more liquid, non-collectible items. So either cash, ideally you should have a certain, and I'm not a financial advisor here, so I don't, these are opinions, but these are pretty commonplace opinions that you're going to get, from most people who have been successful, in saving money and navigating financial stuff in life. But I'm going to mention it here because I think it's so important with particularly young people who are starting in this hobby, that, you don't want to come in with this mindset of like, this is where I'm going to like make all of my money, and this is how I'm going to, because it takes a ton of expertise, a ton of ability, a ton of luck and timing to probably do that. And it's very risky. And so you don't want to be putting money into Pokemon that you really can't afford to lose. So setting that budget, not spending yourself into debt to the point where you then have to sell your cards to pay off your credit card bills, and the market takes a downturn and now you have to sell your expensive cards, the cards that you really enjoy, you really love, not because you want to, but because you have to pay those those bills off. And you thought the cards were going to continue to go up and you could sell them at a gain, but now that isn't the case. And I worry there are a lot of people, frankly, making the market a little less sustainable and solid and stable as it should be right now, because they're coming into the market with this idea that like, oh my gosh, I can make like quick money. I can come in and throw a few $1,000s and then double my money, make $4,000 in a couple of months. And that type of short-term investing doesn't work in the long run. Generally, there are a course of exceptions where people are very successful in that. But it's much better to, in my opinion, to be a conservative investor where you pick, whether it's stocks, these are just my opinions, again, not a financial advisor, whether it's stocks, Pokemon cards, collectibles, other collectibles, you are picking things that you understand, that you believe in, and you believe will be valuable for 20, 30 years. And so you're not buying into these things with the idea of like, I'm trying to time, I know they're going to collapse, and I'm trying to time when that happens. I'm trying to get my money in and out as quickly as possible. You're investing in it, or you're buying into it because you believe that the makeup of these cards are going to sustain, over the next 20, 30 years. They're going to be a lot more valuable down the line. They're going to not go straight up, but they're going to have a decent growth return over time. That's if you're interested in the finances and you're interested in making money. If you're interested in just collecting and enjoying, then the only reason the money part matters is if you need to sell them in an emergency, or if you want to sell parts of your collection to fund other parts of your collection. Which I've done a lot of. Like, I'll slowly sell things that I think went a little bit too high to fund other parts of my collection. So that's an example of where I when I bought those items, I didn't buy them to flip them. I bought them because I thought they were really valuable items. Then they went up, which I was expecting. But other items that I wanted equally didn't go up as quickly, and I didn't really understand that. So I would sell that item and buy two of this item that I thought was equally valuable. So those are the types of things that as you gain experience, you can do within the market. So make that financial plan. Also, Pokemon card buying and collecting can be very addicting because it's so much fun, and it's also very fun and enjoyable to make money. So particularly in times like this, it can be very addicting because people love looking, and I love looking and checking to see, oh my gosh, my cards are now worth this much. I've made, hey, girlfriend, mom, friend, I've made, $1 million, right? Collecting these Pokemon cards. I'm some sort of financial genius that I, was able to do that. It's like that sort of feeling is very addicting, and it causes a lot of mistakes to be made. It makes you overconfident in your ability. It makes you overconfident in the market and overconfident in what these things are. That doesn't mean that it changes the objectives of how many of these cards are and how much popularity there is in the Pokemon market. You have to be very careful with getting, fighting against that, getting addicted to that buying, getting addicted to the thinking and the feeling that these things are always going to go up. You need a more level head, and you need to look at other markets like comic books, sports cards, Magic the Gathering. All these things have been very hot in periods, and then they've cooled off, and they've had periods where they've gone back down, and then they come back up, and different sorts of things. Okay, so you stop that addiction by trying to remain with that level head, calming yourself down, looking outside of your little Pokemon bubble to see how other things are doing, understanding how other hobbies were doing. Like I just said, you also spend time away from eBay, away from checking prices, away from being focused on prices, and back towards the love of your cards. And these are for the collectors. There are some people who are just in this to make money, or primarily to make money. For those who aren't, for those like me who are doing it for both because they really enjoy both things, I step away from the computer, I step away from the prices when I'm feeling like I want to buy, even though I don't really think that this is a good price or this makes sense, but I feel that craving to buy. I'll step away and I'll spend some time just like enjoying my card. First of all, I'll spend some time away from Pokemon, enjoying my girlfriend and my life and my other hobbies and things that I really enjoy, and my work, my job, which I haven't said what I do on this channel. I'm not sure I will, but I'll focus on that. I'll go look at my binder collections. I'll go look at the PSA Great cards I already have. I'll switch the ones that I have up on my stands that I'm looking at, for other ones I haven't looked at in a while. I'll remember why I'm doing this, why I enjoy it. I'll remember that I enjoy just the pleasure of having it and looking at these cards. And it's not all about the financial gain and that, intense race to have the biggest and greatest collection, because that will make you greedy. And when people get greedy, they make mistakes in investing. It's one of the most classic things. People get greedy. People have that fear of missing out. They need it. I need that item. I must have that item. And if I don't get it, I'll be lost. I won't be happy. I won't be satisfied. Whenever you start feeling those feelings, you're put yourself at risk for making poor financial, you do subjective things instead of objective, rational financial decisions. Okay. Important things to keep in mind. And that's for experts too, for the whole range, but it's really important as you're beginning and starting out in those first few years in particular, I think. So the next thing, that I've sort of mentioned throughout this is you've got to do the work to sort of move from that, I don't want to use too many terms here but to move from like a collector who maybe isn't interested, in making that much money or optimizing what they're doing, to if they really want to sort of optimize their purchases and buy what makes the most sense, you got to look at the numbers, you got to look at the data, and you got to understand, deeply why you're doing this, why you're buying this. You have to look at other, you have to get outside that Pokemon world, look at other collectibles and all those sorts of things. So do that research, increase your knowledge. For those beginners, understand some of the basics. What are the most popular sets? Why are those sets so popular? What makes people like them? Why do people like certain Pokemon? What are the Pokemon that people like? What are the pull rates for cards? What are the pop reports for cards? Why does one card have a big pop report, one doesn't? Is that because one is popular and it sells and one doesn't? Or is it because because of rarity, scarcity? understanding all of that will help you make those good financial purchases and those purchases that are going to go up over time in value. The last thing I'll say in this video, the last tip I would give, and this is really, I guess, two things this is how I made, I made a lot of the money that I was able to make, is that I bought large collection lots, either graded lots of PSA graded cards or large lots of ungraded cards. And I graded those cards myself. I went through those lots and I picked out the ones that I felt were gradable, and I graded those cards, and a lot of them ended up getting 10s and 9s. So I would spend $3,000 on a lot, and then I would get $25,000 out of that lot after all of the piecing apart and all of the grading. And that happened a couple of times throughout my experience. And in other videos, I can go more specifically maybe into what I did there and even talk about those specific lots. But that's what really catapulted me into having a really, really valuable collection, because I was able to take advantage of a couple of those types of lots, maybe 5 or 6 of those types of lots. And I did that through my experience, through my activity, and also through some luck, because I also did make some mistakes. And, to talk about something to avoid, this takes a lot of skill to buy lots and to know what lots to buy and to accurately price cards, and to, through just eBay pictures, have a sense of how mint cards are and what they're going to grade. And so I would suggest you do this slowly and you go carefully, and you start with some small lots, because I made some big mistakes, and I bought lots with a lot of like bulk cards that I have this like annoying bulk that I slowly sell off sometimes, that I have to like lug around, that I don't want, of a lot of cards that looked maybe decent on eBay, but ended up being bent or having these sorts of things. So when you're looking at eBay searches, you wanna find lots. If somebody has PSA cards and a lot of ungraded cards, you have to wonder, why didn't they grade those ungraded cards? One thing to think about. There are lots of different things that you need to think about. That's one. Another thing you can think about is like, why, like if the pictures don't really make sense, like they put they're like very grainy picture, or they don't really show the backs of cards. They don't go close up on their best card. They like hide their best card, best card later in it. These sorts of things don't make sense. It's probably because it's damaged, or maybe it's even a fake card. Lots of those sorts of things. So you can also contact people for more pictures. I really suggest you guys do this. If the seller is very genuine and really wants to sell the cards and isn't trying to get one over on you, they very likely will respond to your messages, particularly if you're polite, and you ask for more specific pictures and more specific details on why they're selling, why they have some graded cards and not graded cards. Maybe they bought those graded cards and didn't, never graded them themselves, and they're uncomfortable grading cards. So they really do have some mint cards. They just don't like that process. Which goes into the last thing of, learning how to grade cards. Learning how to grade cards is critical to make money in this hobby. It was even more critical when there were less of us doing it, because the competition was honestly felt so low. There are a lot more people who now are comfortable and know how to grade cards and look and know what they're looking for, but it will still give you a big advantage. I see a lot of ungraded cards right now being sold for over the price of what they're going to grade, because people don't know how to grade and they don't know what to look for. So understanding what to look for will help you pick the right lots, will help you pick the right individual cards. But ideally, you will buy these big lots, because people are not good at determining what the value of big lots are. They can be very good and often overpay for single cards, because everyone knows what that single card is. But in big lots, you can develop a good instinct of like, how many really good cards are they not showing in this? Did they show an interesting mixture? Does it seem like they don't really know exactly what to show, how to list it, those sorts of things? And I've been able to buy some really great lots using those skills, over the 3 years that I've done it. So I think that's it for today, in this video. Thank you to all those who have made it this far in the video. And I hope these starter tips are really helpful to y'all. And I'll I think Rafi and I will be posting another video later this week, so look for that, and we'll keep making videos for y'all. All right, till next time.